welcome to the Matt and Kendall Hagee podcast. We are so excited to have the opportunity to share with you an exciting mini-series on leadership.
Yes, this is part 2. So if you did not listen to part 1, you can always go back and listen to part 1.
You sure can.
Pastor Matt talked about the definition of leadership. He also brought up about being operational leadership. You are quizzing me on this. Operational leadership, personal leadership, and situational leadership.
OSP, operational, situational, and personal.
Yes.
And you know, the thing is in each and everybody's situation in their life, in their personal life, professional life, physical life, financial life, leadership principles, especially these leadership principles, have the opportunity to give each person an advantage in accomplishing their goals. And I think that really needs to be one of the goals of leadership. Whenever you start something, you need to have a defined end goal in mind. What do I want to accomplish with this? Well, what I would hope you would accomplish is that you give yourself an advantage in accomplishing your goal.
Yes.
You know, if your goal this year is to financially discipline yourself, I would hope that these 5 principles, these essentials, are insight and their initiative, their influence, their impact, and integrity.
Whew.
Those 5 things would give you the opportunity to gain an advantage in accomplishing your financial goal, your physical goal, your relational goal, so that you make progress in the right direction. And with that progress, you build confidence, and with that confidence, you persuade others and accomplish the things that really God put you on this earth to accomplish. And so we hope that this first conversation that we had on leadership is something that was a blessing to you, and we think that this next one is going to be as well. So we want you to tell others about it and get them involved. And give us the opportunity to
you know what? Now that we're
make a difference in your everyday life.
1 week, how many of you are still pursuing those goals? Have you quit those goals and made new ones, or are you still pursuing? That's what I want to know. Because, the statistics show people quit within.
Yeah. So the first thing that we shared, and I talked about this in the first episode, that this was a conversation I had with the entire organization here at Global Evangelism,
Yes.
the television ministry, the church, the school. Everybody got to hear the same thing. And the thing that I wanted them to know was that our principles were the platform that we built our goals upon. And, the reason that I wanted to call them principles and not beliefs, because a lot of times people say, well, what are your organizational beliefs, or what are your personal beliefs? Beliefs change.
Yes.
There was a time when people believed that the world was flat, but somebody did something to disprove that, and so they changed the belief. There was a time when people believed that the flu came from the spirits up in the mythological sky, and that when you died of the flu, you were under their influence, and therefore they gave it the name influenza. Yes. Well, then they found out that it was a virus that could be treated with medicine, so their beliefs changed. The thing that I have found is that while beliefs can change when people get into greater knowledge of truth, principles don't change. And so here was the guiding principle that we wanted to build these 5 leadership essentials on. And the first principle is, and I've said this to the church, and I've said it to our staff, and I say it in our home, value is added when engagement is increased. And people hear that, and I'm thankful that they're hearing it now enough that they roll their eyes whenever they hear it. But
I love it. The kids even have it down. I think they came up with the song or something with it.
I hope they sang a song, because it's the song that gets the paycheck to the bank every week. So if they want to keep eating groceries, they better sing it louder. So value is added when engagement is increased. And that basically means this: the more engagement that I can have in someone's life, the more valuable I am in their life.
That's
if
right.
As a pastor, the only time that I engage with somebody is in that 90-minute service, then in all of the hours that they have invested in other things in their week, I'm only 90 minutes of it. But if as a ministry, not just as a pastor, but as a ministry, I can engage them spiritually multiple times throughout the week, yes. I can engage them physically in different events. We've got a Cornerstone Youth Sports League. We've got a Cornerstone School. We've got all of these different opportunities for people to actually come and engage with an activity, a fellowship group, some form of connection so that their level of engagement is increased, then every time that they create that engagement, I gain value.
Yes.
And my purpose is to become one of the most valuable resources in the lives of the members of our church or the people who support this ministry, that whenever they're in need of something, it's the level of engagement that they have with this organization that they find to be at a value of priceless. I don't want them to be able to put a value on it because it's just part of who they are. And so that principle is something that drives these leadership essentials. For example, insight is not what most people would consider it to be. They say, well, insight is a matter of perspective. Well, insight is a matter of perspective, but as the essential of leadership, insight is a combination. It's a combination of three things. The first element of insight is vision. And vision is, what do I want to do? Now, as an individual, you can testify to this. I have never had a problem deciding what I want to do.
Amen.
I always have a vision. I'm the guy that looks at something and says, we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this. But that's only part of insight. That's 1/3 of it. The next part of insight is wisdom. How are we going to do it? And most of the time, what I need to add to my vision is wisdom. If I look at something and I say, we can do this, most of the time your question is, how are we going to do it?
Yes.
And there begins the pursuit of wisdom. Well, I don't know. And sometimes I'm cavalier enough to say, we don't need wisdom. Let's just try it.
Let's just do it.
And then we wind up creating a mess. But, it requires both vision, what I want to do, and wisdom, how am I going to do it, before we begin to search out the third portion of insight, which is discernment. And discernment is, when do I do it?
That's good.
We just came out of the Christmas season, and Christmas is the time that everybody sends their Christmas card. They take their family picture and they mail it to all their friends. Well, everybody knows it doesn't take much discernment, but, Christmas is the time you send Christmas cards. What if you sent your Christmas card in July? You did the right thing, but you did it at the wrong time, and therefore it doesn't have as much impact. So sometimes people have a vision, what I want to do, and they have wisdom. I know how I'm going to do it, but they don't have any discernment, which is, when do I do it? And if they do the right thing at the wrong time, it doesn't have as much impact. So insight requires three things: vision, wisdom, and discernment. And whenever you have insight, you not only know what you want to do, you know exactly what you want to do. And you not only know how to do it, you know exactly how to do it. And you not only know when to do it, you know exactly when to do it. But if value's added when engagement's increased, which is our principle, in order for me to have good insight, I have to engage with others. If I have vision, which is what I want to do, I need to engage with someone who has wisdom. And they need to engage with me. And their wisdom adds value to my vision, and my vision adds value to their wisdom. And then we need to go find somebody with some discernment.
Yes.
And this is why the Bible says in Proverbs, there's wisdom is in a multitude of counsel, wisdom is found. So if I'm an island, if I'm that self-made man, if I'm that person that I don't want to engage with anyone, I can do it all by myself. I am stubbornly prideful and arrogant that no one can help me, then I have disengaged and I have devalued myself, because I am not going to leverage the wisdom and the discernment of others or gain vision and insight from others, and therefore value is not added because engagement is not increased. So you have to have principles that you build your leadership essentials on. And the first principle is value is added when engagement's increased. You've seen this in what you're doing with the women here at Cornerstone, with your women.
Embraced Women's Ministry.
Embraced Women's Ministry. You've started a WWF group, which is the Warrior Women's Fellowship.
Yes.
And your Embraced Worship Nights. Now, you're increasing engagement and you're adding value to the lives of others. And in turn, they're adding value to the women's ministry because they're bringing perspectives that you never had before.
That's right. That's right. We have women that are connecting with other women, different generations. We are leaning on one each other. We are loving one another. We're bearing one another's burdens. We're praying for one another. It's amazing to see another woman give her wisdom and discernment, and we learn from each other. So, yeah, it's just an overwhelming experience that we have offered here at Cornerstone with multiple events here during the week that you can literally just choose what you want to go to. It's a menu of options.
And you give people the opportunity to invite others to be a part of it
And our
as
goal
well.
is to just to keep on adding more. We're going to have an embraced walk, an embraced run for those of you that like to exercise, or maybe do an embraced fur baby walk. Bring your fur babies.
I was going to buy
I
you a
love
fur baby.
that. I already have 2 corgis,
No,
babe.
those belong to the kids. You need another one.
Lola, we have 2 corgis. If you don't know, they are called Lola and Levi.
You need a Shetland pony.
He wants a Labrador, but it's a conversation.
I don't
on
want a
another
lab.
time outside of the microphone.
In faith believing, I have a lab. So
anyways, we got off track there. But yes, so
that's one of our principles.
value is added when engagement is increased.
And the other principle is simply this. It comes from the book of Galatians. Through love, serve one another. And here is the challenge of that statement. Love is selfless.
Yes.
And you cannot serve unless you are willing to be selfless. If you do attempt an act of service, but your purpose and your motive is self-recognition, then it's really not service, it's manipulation. I'm giving you something in the hope that you'll do something in exchange for me. That's not service, that's manipulation. When you have the right motive behind your service, which is love, I'm going to do this because I love the Lord. I'm going to do this because I love seeing others have their goals reached and accomplished. I'm going to do this because it is the right attitude and the right thing for me to do. Then you are truly serving, and it's only service that God honors. You know, the Bible says that the greatest among you is the servant of all. Well, you can't serve everyone if you serve based on your need for gratification. You can only do that if you serve based on your love for the Lord and your love for fellow man. So these are the 2 principles that we want to build the leadership culture in our organization around. We want to build that leadership culture in our church because, again, as I said in our last episode, everyone is a leader. I will come to the altar and confess I was wrong when I denounced that statement in my youth, and I've now come to grips with this reality. Everyone is
gained
a
wisdom
leader.
and discernment.
I've gained wisdom, and now I've got to exercise the discipline of consistently applying it.
Yes. So that was your 3rd guiding principle. Is that commitment?
And consistency.
And consistency is your 4th.
Well, that's my 4th, but then tell me what my 3rd is.
Well, your 3rd, you already did your so you had values added when engagement is increased. The 2nd was through love, serve one another, Galatians. The 3rd is commitment.
Which is an inward decision.
Yes. It's
I
your
have to
commitment
make a decision that
to
I'm going to do
it.
this.
And then consistency, you got to keep on,
Consistency and commitment.
over
I'm going to give you a
again.
3rd C. Consistency and commitment complement one another.
Ooh, compliment. So that'd be your 5th.
Well, no, that's not a 5th
So you're just
principle.
going to add it in there.
No, they just go together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So commitment is an inward decision. Consistency is practicing your commitment on a daily basis.
okay.
It's that daily decision that I am going to keep my commitment. You know, we were talking about resolutions in the last episode, how 92% of people fail at them. Why? Not because they didn't have a commitment. I honestly believe that when somebody says, hey, I want to get in better shape, they mean it. They've committed to it. They just didn't have any consistency that they
keep
added with their
trying?
commitment.
Do you think we just give up too quickly?
I think that they give up because it gets difficult. I think they give up because, you know, they maybe had some unrealistic goals. I
Yeah,
think they give up because they didn't have a good plan. There's all kinds of reasons why people give up, but it takes consistency not to give up.
That's
You
right,
know,
keep
I mean, no one has ever measured or met their projections. You know, I've never, anytime somebody comes to me in the office and they say, here's our projections, you know, the first thing I know, those are wrong. And the reason those are wrong is there's so many things that are uncontrollable. We project that we're going to do this by this time in the year. What you haven't figured out is how many days is it going to rain? How many days is it going to freeze? What's the stock market going to do? What's the banks going to do? It doesn't really matter how many different things can affect it. You can't control everything. So it's good that you have an understanding about where you want to go.
Yes.
But if you have an unrealistic projection, you've only set yourself up for a greater challenge because your projection's already wrong.
Yeah, so you can be flexible.
It can be close, but it's not right.
Flexibility could be another ingredient.
Well, that might be something that you need to apply. But
It is, that's why I said
consistency.
being flexible, not being so structured that maybe there is some leniency I have to allow myself. If
Problem with
maybe
flexibility.
I'm not working out every day, but I'm going to try to move my body some way, somehow.
Problem with
Family
flexibility.
push-ups tonight at dinner.
No. The problem with flexibility is that flexibility starts with an F, and commitment and consistency start with a C.
Well, it's okay.
No. In seminary, they told us to use alliterations.
All C's, got it.
And we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. We
Yes.
also want to give you the opportunity to share with others how they can be a part of this podcast. If you haven't subscribed, you would honor us greatly by clicking the subscribe button. You can find us on Apple
Social
Podcasts
media.
or Spotify.
Spotify. I am now
That's a new
Spotify
platform
member
for
now.
us.
Yes.
And if you enjoyed this week's episode, we want you to make sure that you tune in next week because we are going to finish up our mini-series as we talk more about these principles of
Essential
leadership
ingredients.
and discuss more in depth the essential ingredients. We talked about insight a little bit today so that you'd have an understanding of how the principles are applied with the ingredients. But when it comes to these ingredients, I assure you, if you will add every one of them together, not only will you find a greater value in yourself, but you'll find a greater value in the relationships you have with others and the relationship you have with the Lord. And we look forward to sharing more about that with you the next time you join us on the Matt and Kendall Hagee podcast.
Bye, guys.
If you would like to get the weekly messages shared by Pastor Hagee and myself, we encourage you to subscribe to the Matt and Kendall Hagee podcast. Beginning in 2020, there will be 2 releases each and every week. The first is going to cover this last Sunday's content. The second will be the conversations that Kendall and I are having about what makes a difference in your everyday life. You won't want to miss either episode, but it gives you the opportunity to engage twice as much each and every week. Thank you for what you do. Follow Matt and Kendall Hagee podcast, and God bless.